Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. We're going to start this morning first with the water vapor satellite picture. And I believe you can see what is influencing our weather pattern for today and what will be for much of this week. That is the upper level low that is sitting off the New England coast. Now this upper level low is intensifying rapidly and will continue to intensify for at least the next 24 to 48 hours. As it's doing so, it will continue to meander over the western Atlantic, and that is excellent news for the New York City and Philadelphia metropolitan area. The reason why is because our location is basically set up to the west of this upper level low. And when you're on the western side of an upper level low, you're under the influence of convergence and confluence. What that basically means is that air is converging at 500 millibars and then it's forced to sink to the surface. That's why we have these black and red colors over parts of New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. That is representative of dry air. Dry air is developing because it is sinking, and when you have sinking dry air, that means you have clear skies. And this pattern will continue throughout the entire week, which is great news because basically if you like today's weather, you're going to love the rest of this week and into this weekend. So let's take a look at the latest surface analysis. Here's our surface map as of 9:20 this morning. And basically what we have in place is a high pressure system that is setting up all the way north in Quebec, and it's building all the way south into South Carolina. And that is one impressive high pressure system, and that high pressure system is being enhanced by the strong sinking air that is developing with the upper level low. And we can see the surface reflection of that upper level low to the east of Maine. Now this low pressure system will again sit and spin to the east of Maine throughout much of this week, which means that if you're along the immediate coast, you could see some winds gusting anywhere from 10 to 20 knots, possibly up to 30 knots as you move out over the coastal waters. But along the immediate coast, for the most part, we're expecting light and variable winds because the pressure gradient is not that impressive. And also, we can expect clear skies for the most part. Now, I can't rule out an isolated shower from a rogue disturbance rotating around this storm, but for the most part, most locations will remain dry through today and throughout much of this week. This is the 500 millibar forecast for tomorrow night from the Penn State eWall, and it's the European model. Now, what I want to show here is that we have plenty of strong disturbances developing over the northern plains. Now, these disturbances will move north and then drop south. The problem is that when they're dropping south through the eastern Great Lakes, they're under an area of convergence and confluence, which means that every time these disturbances turn to bend and start to drop southeast towards the northern mid-Atlantic, they will weaken and fall apart. So every time you see thunderstorms developing over Michigan, Wisconsin, don't worry, they will not reach the northern mid-Atlantic throughout this week because these disturbances will weaken and collapse as they move east towards the east coast. Meanwhile, our upper level low continues to spin off the east coast, and that is what's going to continue to set up our pattern. But notice something very interesting well to the west. We have a deepening trough that's setting up off the west coast, and this west coast trough will eventually force the polar jet stream well to the north. Keep that in mind as we move forward in this forecast. So here we are at 500 millibars on Thursday evening, and we have a slightly different change in the pattern. Our upper level low over the western Atlantic is still hanging around, but it's clearly starting to weaken. Now remember what I said about that deep trough over the west coast. It continues to intensify, and for the most part, the polar jet stream is forced well to the north. But notice we have an upper level disturbance over the central plains that is starting to cut off. And that's very important to notice because this cutoff low that starts to develop over the plains combined with the cutoff low that is sitting over the western Atlantic means that an upper level ridge will set up over the east coast. And we can see that these purple splotches, which signify sinking air, are starting to increase along the east coast. And that basically means high pressure is going to remain in control for this entire week as we move into the weekend. Finally, we move to Sunday, and you can see the result of this deep trough that's sitting off the west coast. The polar jet stream is forced to remain well to the north into northern Canada. What we have in place over the upper Midwest is basically the subtropical jet stream with a cutoff disturbance. We have all these cutoff lows developing because these disturbances are becoming separated from the polar jet stream. And when you have these cutoff lows, they tend to meander around, sit around, and locations where these upper level lows are impacted remain cloudy, stormy, and wet. But the good news is that we are not under that upper level low. We are under an upper level ridge, as you can see over the East Coast. In fact, we're over a ridge axis. And that means that high pressure is going to remain in control throughout this weekend and will suppress any potential for any significant precipitation. Meanwhile, our upper level low over the Western Atlantic begins to finally move north and starts to become part of the polar jet stream again. So this upper level low will eventually give way, lift north, allow the pattern to become a little bit more progressive, and allow this upper level low sitting over the upper Midwest to eventually slide east by next week. But before that happens, high pressure will be in control. However, while high pressure will be in control, we will see a little bit of a different weather pattern set up by Sunday. The reason why is the position of the high pressure system at the surface. For much of this week and into Saturday, high pressure will be to the north and northwest of the northern Mid-Atlantic, which means we'll be under a dry northwesterly flow, and we can expect clear skies. Again, an isolated shower is possible with a rogue disturbance, but most locations will remain dry and warm with highs in the 70s. However, by Sunday, the high pressure system moves a little bit further east, and that allows the winds to shift to the southeast and east, which means that a marine air mass will be able to build into the immediate coast. So locations like New York City, Long Island, Connecticut, the immediate New Jersey coast could see an increase in low-level cloud cover and some fog. And yes, there will be a threat for some drizzle and a few isolated showers. Nothing heavy, nothing that's significant, but certainly a much cooler environment than what we'll see for the rest of this week. So Sunday is going to likely be the coolest and rawest day of the entire 7-day period. Thank you for trusting in NYNJPA Weather as your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Have an excellent day.